Hey everybody, Mrs. Horn here. Today we're going to continue with some notes that we started our new unit with. So this is day 2 of geologic history. I want to revisit the question, how old are rocks? There are two ways that we can age a rock. We can figure out exactly how old it is, or we can relatively age it and say, well, it's older than this layer, or it's younger than this layer. And in the video the YouTube video I just asked you to watch, the guy had a great example of laundry in a basket. When you throw your dirty clothes in the laundry basket, which layer of clothing is the newest? Where are the newest dirty clothes? Well, they're on top. So the youngest layer is always going to be on top. And the dirty clothes that are way at the bottom, those have been dirty the longest. Those are the first clothes that you put in. So that layer of clothing is the oldest, just like the layer of rocks on the bottom is always going to be the oldest. Okay, so I need you in your notebook. We're going to pick up where we left off yesterday. If I get talking too fast, please pause the video and catch up that way. I also need you to have your reference tables out with you, and let's see, I'm on page 7, I think, of the reference tables. Yep, I'm on page 7, and I want you looking at the sedimentary rock section of page 7, and we're most importantly looking at these map symbols of each rock type. So that's going to come in handy in just a few minutes. Okay. All right, so how old are rocks? Another vocabulary word I have to throw at you, and the word is unconformity. Yesterday we learned a bunch of new words. Today, here's our one new word of the day, unconformity. And this is when layers of rock erode away, and then new sedimentary rock is deposited on top. Okay, unconformity is when layers of rock erode away, and then new sedimentary rock is deposited on top. Here's what it might look like. So step 1, deposition. This is showing flat horizontal layers of sedimentary rock. All the sediments were deposited, probably in water. They were compacted over time and cemented together. Okay, that's what sedimentary rock layers look like. Now it's possible that over time, due to tectonic activity within the earth, those layers might get pushed and pressurized together and start to fold or bend. So the folding would come as step 2. And then once it folds, if you'll notice at step 3 that the tips of those hills got eroded away. We haven't talked a ton about erosion yet. That's a little bit later in the year, but eroding would mean they got blown away by water, wind, any kind of weather elements. The tips of those hills get eroded away, and then look at step 4. What happens is that more sedimentary layers are deposited on top. So this right here, look where my cursor is, this right here is an unconformity, meaning that's where erosion happened. Let me see if I can draw a little arrow. This is where erosion happened, and this is the unconformity, meaning material was eroded away, and there is earth, there's rock that is missing. All right, I'm going to scroll down a little bit here. All right, now we've got a couple that we need to figure out. So get your pen or pencil ready. We're going to label these right on here. I want to label what's the oldest, and we're going to label that number 1. So this is going to be layer number 1 that formed first. Then this is limestone that formed second. The one with the dots that formed third. And then whatever's on top is the youngest, so that formed last. Now over here on the side, it's asking, okay, what layer is the oldest and what layer is the youngest? I want you to actually name these rocks. So look at the pattern of this map symbol here. And now I also need you to look at your reference tables at the sedimentary rocks, and I need you to find the map symbol that looks just like that. I'm going to zoom in a little bit here, and it looks like this right here, and that is siltstone. So if I go back to this, my oldest layer is going to be siltstone. So I'm going to write that on a line. Siltstone is the oldest. And then to find my youngest layer, here's my map symbol here. Go over to my reference table, and the one with just the dashes, that's called shale. Okay, so I'm going to write shale is my youngest. That is on top. Okay. All right. Let's go down to the next one. If I can. Oh boy. All right, here we go. This one's a little tricky because we've got a fault added to it, but we can still do this here. I'm going to number the layer. So I've got a number 1 here. It's at the bottom. This was the second thing deposited. This was the third thing deposited. Limestone is the 4th. And then there's that siltstone again. That was the 5th layer. But you'll notice that there is a fault line that it looks like it occurred after all of those layers were already there. So the 6th thing that has happened is the fault. So number 6 is the fault. Okay, let's use our reference tables again and see if we can name this rock that is the oldest. And name the rock. Looks like this up here, which is conglomerate. Conglomerate. That's our oldest rock. Oops, don't want to do that. And then the youngest isn't actually a layer of rock, but rather an event, which is the fault. So the fault is going to be the youngest event, or the youngest thing in this picture. Okay, if you want to pause it and get all that written down, feel free to do that. I'm going to move on to the next page. Okay, so the next page we've got more practice. And I have everything numbered. And I have the oldest and the youngest already labeled on the side. So we've got layer 1, layer 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Those layers all were created as horizontal flat layers, and then over time they folded. So that's why I have number 7 here, would be folding. The oldest is the shale that's at the bottom, and then the youngest event would be the folding. Feel free to pause whenever you need to so that you can get all the labels in. I labeled 1, shale is 1, limestone's 2, conglomerate is 3, that might be sandstone, which is 4, 5, everything tilted, and then the last layer on top was number 6, which is siltstone. Okay, oldest is at the bottom, that's shale, and the youngest is siltstone. Next one here, we have an igneous intrusion. So we started with number 1, which is sandstone. Then we had number 2, which is an igneous intrusion. That's some kind of igneous magma intrusion. On top of that, limestone formed, and then on top of that, the shale formed. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Oldest is at the bottom, which is sandstone. Youngest is at the top, which is shale. For number 6 here, we're going to number all the horizontal layers right in order. So we've got limestone, sandstone, shale, conglomerate. Those all happened right in order. And then the last thing to happen was this igneous intrusion pushed its way through all of those layers. So that was event number 5. The last one on the page here, we're going to number them in horizontal order. So sandstone, limestone, conglomerate, and shale. The 5th thing to happen was an event, which was the fault. And then after the fault happened, this igneous intrusion pushed its way through the fault. So that is event number 6. So the oldest was the sandstone, and the youngest was the igneous intrusion. Okay. And there's just 2 more here, and then I'm going to stop for the day. Layer number 1 is shale, number 2 is limestone, 3 is siltstone, 4 is sandstone. Then the next thing that came was the igneous intrusion, so that's event number 5. And I know that happened next because then the fault happened, and the fault actually shifted that igneous intrusion. So the fault was the last thing. The fault is the youngest event on that picture. For the last picture, a lot of stuff going on here. We've got siltstone at the bottom, conglomerate, limestone, what's that, shale, and then sandstone. And then once all 5 of those layers were formed, then we had number 6 happen, which this is an igneous intrusion. And then we had another igneous intrusion push through, which that would be event number 7. Okay. Tomorrow, so the past 2 days I've given you some new information. Tomorrow is going to be practice. So I'll make a video for tomorrow. It will be practice. It will be the next page in your notes. And we'll kind of practice some of these skills and make sure we know how to relatively age a rock. See you tomorrow. Hope this helps.